Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Talking BizTech. I'm your host, Saqif, and today we are going to explore the usage of legal services proactively in business. But before we do that, I just want to thank the digital marketing startup CS Tube Boss. CS Tube Boss provides is a startup that provides marketing solutions to enterprises, marketers, and content creators. CST Boss has their own digital store where they're selling digital products such as online courses, growth softwares, and ebook packages. So if you want to check the store out, the link is down in the description box. Now back to the topic. Why is it necessary for entrepreneurs to use legal service proactively? See, all businesses and startups need legal advice and legal help. You will need to register your business in order to protect any intellectual property, learn about taxes and write offs, create documents, likely sign contracts, possibly incorporate, and much, much more. For the first time founders, it can become overwhelming when you're still developing your product and pulling together your team. But don't avoid it because a legal mistake or misstep can cost you money, stress, and possibly your business. Entrepreneurs should use legal services proactively because it will help them manage conflicts, avoid litigation, and increase their chances of success. They need to identify and manage risk before they become issues. So I'm going to explore legal services even more with my guest for today's episode, Sheryl Scott. Sheryl Scott is an independent legal shield associate of uh, of the company called it's a long initial so it's PPLSI Legal Shield. She's also an entrepreneur and writer. So let me just go ahead and bring her on Talking Biz Tech. Hi, Cheryl.
Hello, how are you?
Good, and you?
Great. Thank you for having me on today.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you so much for your time. And Cheryl, before we dive into the legal services and how to use it proactively, I do want to get to know you a little better, and I do this with all my guests. Can you tell me about yourself and your background?
Sure. Yeah, I'm actually, interestingly enough, on career number three.
Wow.
Yeah, I started out in advertising, specifically help wanted ads pre internet. So now I'm dating myself. And then I switched into career coaching. So I went from helping employers hire to helping job seekers figure out what to do and find jobs.
Oh, wow.
Which was incredibly rewarding because I love to help people. The challenge was where I was working was a government agency. And as time went on, I found myself doing more paperwork than I did helping people. So it was a little bit frustrating. I loved what I did, I just didn't necessarily love where I was doing it. And I knew that at some point my job would probably end. You know, government priorities change, funding gets reallocated, and, you know, it happens all too often. So I was looking for a plan B. At the time, I didn't know what it was going to be. A friend of mine told me about Legal Shield, and from a service perspective, it made sense. My husband and I needed our wills written, and we had looked into it. To go the traditional route and hire a lawyer to do it was going to be about $1,000.
Wow.
And without kids, quite frankly, it wasn't $1,000 priority for us at that time. So when a friend told me about Legal Shield and I found out we could get our wills done for $30 a month, in my
That,
head, I'm thinking, even if I have to sign up for a whole year, that's a heck of a deal. That just makes sense. So, needless to say, we got the service. once we had it, we started finding all kinds of ways to use it. And I'll tell you more about that later. But long story short,
Yeah.
I started recommending it to other people. Because let's face it, traditional legal services are expensive,
Hmm.
difficult to access, and often, just confusing. So, as I met folks who thought they'd been wrongfully dismissed, needed new employment contracts looked at, and various other legal services, I started recommending this Legal Shield thing and handing out my friend's card. And she said, "Hey, crazy lady, stop handing out my card, join my team, make some money." Well, the rest, as they say, is history. It was a perfect little side gig while I was working. And then, yes, as I predicted, the funding got cut and my job ended. So since then, Legal Shield has been my primary focus because it allows me to help people, but in way more ways other than just finding them jobs. So it's been hugely rewarding. My passion is really helping entrepreneurs and startup businesses because the reality is they should have lots of legal questions.
True.
They probably have lots of legal needs, but they tend not to have a lot of money. Or even if they do, they want to spend it on revenue generating activities such as product development
Hmm.
or marketing, not boring things like accounting and legal, as important as those are. So, anyway, that's a little bit about my background. This has been my primary focus for the last 4 years. It worked out great during the pandemic because, of course, some businesses shut down, but lots of others also opened up, which is amazing.
No, I agree. I agree with you. During the pandemic, a lot of businesses did close down, but then afterwards, from 2021, a lot of innovative businesses was created, right? And and these businesses are even better than those traditional businesses, right? So that's amazing. And also another, I want to thank you for sharing your background because it's crazy that you and your husband had to uh, just for a small legal issue you had to bear the cost, which was 1,000, you said, right? but
Hmm.
but thanks to Legal Shield, you saved a lot of money, like coming down to $30, right? So
Absolutely.
yeah, it's amazing. And like even though you did mention a little bit about your entrepreneurial journey, I'm still curious to know about more. And also, while you were doing your job, like being a career counselor, is that correct?
Hmm.
um,
Yep.
like did you do any did you have a business beside that, or any side business or side hustle?
Well, yeah, for the last 3 years, I was working Legal Shield as a
Oh, oh,
side gig while I was working, and it was perfect because literally all I did was if I ran across somebody that had a legal need, I would
yes.
simply tell them about it, right? So
Yeah.
super super simple, didn't really interfere with my job. It was absolutely wonderful. Um, for many many reasons, it was a good fit for me, partly because I love to help people.
No, and yeah, that is great news. I meant what I meant was, I'm sorry, I wasn't clear with my question. Is this is it like is it possible if you can share some of your entrepreneurial journey before Legal Shield?
Hmm,
Is that's what
sure. Okay, yeah, no problem. I mean, I've had a number of businesses over the years. I tried many when I was younger, and none of them were really quite the right fit.
oh,
I knew I needed more than one stream of income, but the challenge was finding what was going to be right for me.
yeah.
Now, as my job ended, I did start a private career coaching practice, so I still do
Oh,
that. It's very much part-time, but that is a more traditional self-employed business where it's just me. I am, as the saying goes, chief cook and bottle washer, or in my case, chief cook and resume writer.
oh.
But that's been very much part time. It's not something I did discover in my journey that I'm not really in love with social media. I can learn new tricks, but technology and I have a bit of a love-hate relationship. And, it's interesting because I've worked with a lot of career coaching clients
Yeah.
who at one time or another thought that they might like to be self-employed. And they would say things like, well, if I don't get a job right away, I'll just hang out a shingle and be self-employed. Well, as a coach, I kind of had to give them a bit of a reality check and say, it's not as simple as that. You might be really good at whatever your craft is. For example, we'll take, a carpenter. Yes, he could absolutely start a business out of his garage if he or she felt like that. And hopefully they're really good at carpentry. But what do they know about starting and running a business? I mean, you mentioned a few things in the beginning, like you have to register your business. You've got to collect and pay taxes, and here in Canada, actually register for HST, but not until a certain point. You of course have to declare your income and pay taxes on that. If you've got a website, which you should because you have to market it, hanging out a shingle isn't enough. If you build it, they will come, but only if they actually know it's there. And that can be a bit of a challenge. And that was certainly the challenge that I had with my career coaching business, because that wasn't something that I enjoyed. So as I say, that's become very much a side gig where if people find me, I will help them, but I don't go looking for clients for that portion of my business. But back to our carpenter friend, well, you know what? He or she are also going to need contracts for their clients. They're probably going to have to sign contracts with suppliers, or if they go to purchase, any equipment, what of that stuff can they write off or not, and how much and when? And I mean, there is just so much to know as an employer. And then what if they do a good job of marketing and they get super busy and they want to hire? Well, how do they go about that? And should those employees actually be salaried employees, or should they be contract workers? And it's tough as a new business to know, is that busy season going to last, or is it just a season? And so you might not necessarily want to commit to staff at that stage of the game. But then on the other hand, you don't necessarily want to run yourself into the ground trying to do it all. So it's kind of a tough situation to be in. And of course, the other option is to go out and but utilize independent contractors who are also self-employed. So there's tons of options out there, but it's super helpful to be able to pick up the phone and talk to a lawyer and say, here's where I'm at. Here's the challenges I'm having. What do you recommend? In terms of hiring, well, there's pros and cons to all of the scenarios that I've just mentioned, pros and cons for both the business owner and the staff. And all of that really needs to be explored. And in terms of businesses, here in Canada, it's pretty simple. You're either incorporated or you're not. But to be able to call a lawyer and speak to an accountant and say, hey, what are the pros and cons? Should I incorporate right away? Should I wait? Should I maybe not be incorporated? If there's other people involved, should they be partners? Or should this be a sole proprietorship and I take them on as employees? So many questions. Again, pros and cons to every situation, depending on the type of business, the nature, the goals, and so forth. It can be super confusing to try to navigate. And if you're not in Canada, if you're in the United States, for example, there's way more options when it comes to incorporation. We got S Corps and LLCs and so many. And again, pros and cons to each, and which one suits which kind of business. The list just goes on and on and on. And as I mentioned, lots of startup businesses don't have a ton of money. So LegalShield is a great solution. If business owners, potential business owners, if you've got the money to go hire a lawyer, amazing. If you've got a lawyer in the family that specializes in business law, even better, assuming they're willing to give you a good deal. But for most of us, those two things aren't true. And so LegalShield is an amazing solution because for businesses, we take our family legal plan that's just under $30 a month. We add a business supplement, just under $15 a month. So for less than $45 a month, plus tax, of course, you can get advice for family matters, for business matters, have your wills and powers of attorney drawn up, get advice on contracts and collections and just so many different situations for that small monthly fee. And it's just a huge solution. I have another story to tell, but I just wondered if you had another question first.
Actually, I do, but I want to thank you for sharing that, and also I agree with you that everything has pros and cons. So
Mhm.
my next question to you, Cheryl, is: in your opinion, why is it important for business owners to use legal services proactively?
Well, because if you're using them reactively,
Hmm.
typically that means something has happened and you need a lawyer. Not want one, but need one.
Yeah.
And often I've heard people say that they've got an issue or a situation happening, and I'll say, well, you really should, use legal services. Oh, it's not that bad yet. Well, let me tell you, legal issues do not go away. They get bigger and more expensive as time goes on. And so to use legal services proactively, whether it's just getting questions answered, getting documents and contracts reviewed before you sign them so you know exactly what you're signing, right? As they say, the big print giveth and the small print taketh away. And how many of us take the time to actually read contracts? I mean, let's get serious. I'm willing to bet there's some people out there thinking, I don't sign contracts. Well, let me ask the viewers this. Have you got a cell phone? You've
Yeah.
signed a contract. If you've got internet, you've signed a contract.
Yeah.
Whether you physically signed it or not, you've signed a contract.
Oh
And
yeah.
if you've got a business, if you haven't signed contracts yet, you will. Mark my words, I would almost guarantee it. So, to know exactly what you're signing can make a huge difference. Getting information verified, because, yeah, you and I or anybody can go on Google and look stuff up, assuming we know the right question to ask. But then, how do we know the answer is correct for the time? Because, hey, during COVID, so many things have changed and sometimes changed quite rapidly.
Oh yes.
Plus, how do you know that it's the right answer for your state or province? Because or even city, because some things vary depending on the area that you're in geographically. So many different things. But by doing all of that and being able to just ask questions and so forth means that maybe you don't need the lawyers for the big scary stuff because you can avoid huge pitfalls. So I'll give you an example. I met a young man quite a while ago now through the Chamber of Commerce.
Mhm.
And he first approached me about Legal Shield because him and his wife were about to have their first child. And like my
Oh,
husband and I wanted to get their wills and powers of attorney created. Well, Legal Shield is the most cost effective way to do so. And I said, but hey, what about your business? He was just starting a landscape company. Now, at the time, it was himself and his lawnmower working out of his garage. Pretty straightforward, not too complicated, but he was planning to grow that business. So we set him up with Legal Shield and the business supplement. And fast forward 4 years later, he now has 10 employees, a 3,000 square foot space, tons of equipment, and he's planning to hire 3 to 5 more people before the end of the year. And he actually attributes part of his success to having the Legal Shield membership. So early on, he was able to call and just say, hey, I've started a landscape business out of my garage. What do I need to know? What do I need to do? And how much of it can you help me with? So they advised him on everything. He'd already registered his business, but he didn't have contracts. He didn't have a website. He didn't have privacy policies in terms of use. He didn't know anything about AODA compliance, so many different things. And then, a year in, he wanted to hire some folks. But
mhm.
as you know, in Canada, landscaping is very seasonal. So he really didn't want to bring them on as employees only to have to lay them off again in the winter. So he was able to call the law firm and say, hey, how do I do this? How do I set it up? He was able to have every time he bought a new or leased or purchased a new piece of equipment, he
Mhm.
was able to get that contract looked at by the law firm. Right? They helped him with privacy policies and terms of use when it came time to put up his website. They helped him with contracts, just so many different things, including a succession plan. What if something happens to him? What happens to the business and those employees? So they have arranged helped him arrange all of those things. And he has paid $45 a month.
Whoa, wow.
So just
That's
contract
affordable.
review alone, he
Yeah.
has saved well over $5,000. And
Yeah.
he's the first one to admit if he'd not had Legal Shield, he may or may not have paid the price to call
Oh,
a lawyer and used a lawyer in all of these situations. In some cases, he would have simply forged ahead, maybe with information from Google, crossed his fingers, and just hoped that nothing went wrong. And he probably would have wasted who knows how many hours on Google, even if he knew the right questions to ask. But truth be told, there was some things he wouldn't even have known to ask about. Lots of folks will start a business and make assumptions that just aren't true. For instance, in Canada, you do not have to register for HST, collect it, and pay it right away necessarily. Businesses don't have to they can, but they don't have to until they hit $30,000 in revenue. Well, how do you know if you're going to do 30,000 in your first year? It doesn't matter. It's when you hit the 30,000, whether it's in March or November or 4 years down the road, doesn't matter. That's when you need to register, collect, and pay HST. So that's kind of an odd situation, and it's different everywhere. So depending on where somebody's starting a business, to be able to call a lawyer and get answers just makes so much sense, right?
oh yeah.
What do you do if somebody doesn't pay your bill? Collection agencies are not cheap and they don't always work. Sometimes just having a little legal muscle, for instance, our lawyers might offer to simply write a letter and say, hey, pay this bill or else. Often that will spur people to do what they should have done in the first place. I've talked to numerous business owners who've had to make insurance claims and the insurance companies denied them. Well, with a little legal muscle, often you can get the insurance company to do what they should have done in the first place as well.
Wow. Wow. No, thank you for sharing that story. And Cheryl, I want to share my research with my
Mhm.
viewers. So if I can take a minute, I'll just take a minute
Sure.
from you. Basically, why is it important for entrepreneurs to use legal services proactively? So, and basically, it ensures the protection of owners' personal asset. There's
Mhm.
discrimination and then wrong termination, copyright claims, and incorporation. Also, it helps entrepreneurs with the validation of written and oral contract. And another one would be the legal consultation service,
Mhm.
privacy policy to protect customers' data and their demographic information. It
Mhm.
also protects the entrepreneurs from data breaches, which will help you to keep your personal and business funds separately. There are others. There are many more.
Mhm.
So I what there's also a toll free calls to attorney, but I do have a question for you about Legal Shield, and my question is, how does the app work?
Oh, well, it's actually pretty simple. We have 3 different ways that our members can contact the law firm. Yes, they can pick up the phone and dial the number, the old-fashioned way, some might say.
Yeah. Oh.
They can use their computer and log into the member portal and submit a request that way.
Oh.
Or, as you pointed out, we do have an app that can be downloaded on an Android or an iPhone.
Oh. Wow.
And it's amazing because I don't know if you probably can't see this with my background, but you can literally have a law firm in the palm of your hand. In fact, we like to say wherever you've got access to your phone, you've got access to your firm. And
Oh.
that is huge. Yes, the lawyers typically work between 8:30 and 5, although with
Mhm.
COVID they're incredibly busy and working a lot of overtime. We can call them and reach them between the hours of 8:30 and 5, but because we can submit a written request either through the website or through the app, it means we could submit a request any hour of the night and day. The other bonus to our app is we do have a 24/7 emergency button. So if somebody were being questioned or detained by the police or any level of law enforcement, if children and family services showed up at somebody's door, if somebody was in, heaven forbid, in a car accident where there could be injuries, or from a business perspective as well, if somebody's being pressured to sign something on the spot, those are all considered emergencies. You can tap that red button and literally be on the phone in moments with a lawyer.
Wow.
I unfortunately had to use this a number of years ago. I happened to be in a car accident. I was turning left in an intersection, and somebody chose to run the yellow light. They hit me in the back end. I spun around. Needless to say, I mean, in retrospect, it wasn't that bad. But at the time, I was incredibly freaked out, as you can imagine. And, well, an ambulance showed up. They checked me out, said that I seemed fine, but they still wanted me to go to the hospital. The cops showed up, and yet for some reason they wanted me to go to the reporting center, which I didn't understand because that shouldn't be necessary if the cops are on the scene. And then the tow truck driver who was taking my car to the repair shop, he thought that I should go with him. And quite frankly, I didn't want to do that. He was this big, scary looking dude. So I was freaked out. I didn't know what to do because in my head, I'm thinking I feel fine. The ambulance driver said I seem fine.
Yeah.
But if I don't go to the hospital, am I giving up my right to those medical insurance benefits if, let's say, whiplash shows up tomorrow or even a few days later? Because I've heard of that, right? Especially when you're in shock, sometimes symptoms don't appear for a bit. Well, I thought, hey, I know what to do. And this is like 7:30 on a Tuesday night. I grabbed my phone, I tapped my app, the emergency button, and I was on the phone with a lawyer in less than 5 minutes. And I just explained what I just did to you, right? In a car accident, here's what happened. All these people are trying to tell me I need to be in 3 different places. Please tell me what I should do. And they said, well, as long as you feel fine, go to the reporting center first and deal with the cops. Then you can go worry about your car and then go to the hospital anyways, even if you feel okay. But at any point, if you don't feel okay, go directly to the hospital. And if you have any issues with insurance later for your car or for you, call us back and we will help you sort that as well. So that was just, I mean, it took my stress level from way up here. Yeah. I mean, it didn't eliminate it entirely. Let's be serious. I was in a car accident, but it brought it way, way down because at least I knew what I was doing made sense, right? And I wasn't giving up my rights in any way, shape, or form, you know. And they also advised me when talking to the police what to say, but more importantly, what not to say. You know, yes, I mean, the police are on our side and we can trust them, but whatever you say, and it does not matter that it's under duress and you're stressed and you know, all of that stuff, it doesn't matter. They have to write it down. It goes on record and you can't necessarily change your story later. So it can have huge repercussions.
Oh God. Yeah, no, I agree with you. It has a huge repercussion. Mm-hmm. And so I know you mentioned a little bit about the cost, but is it okay if you can repeat and also
absolutely
and also
yes.
How can someone become a member?
Okay, so LegalShield is available in Canada or the US. Mm-hmm. And for an entire family, so the member, their spouse, unmarried children living at home or in post-secondary, anywhere, well, up to the age of 26. So that would include, you know, your bachelor's degree, master's degree, and maybe even beyond.
Yeah.
$29.95 a month. Now, something I think says a lot about our company is if somebody has children for whom they're a parent or a guardian that have either physical or mental disabilities, those children are covered as long as they keep their membership, regardless of their age. So I think that says a lot about the integrity of our company. So that's our family plan. And there is only one choice, so that keeps it super simple.
Yeah.
If you're in Canada, it's in Canadian dollars. If you're in the United States, it's in American dollars, and your state or provincial taxes apply, but it's $29.95. Then our business plans, we have our business supplement for solopreneurs, mom and pop type businesses. It works for most startups. It is $14.95 a month. It gets added to that family plan. It cannot be purchased on its own. So for solopreneurs like you and I, it is brilliant. Not only can we get answers for personal and business,
Yeah.
as well as assistance, but because you can't buy it by itself, it's a tax deductible write-off. That is so cool, because a lot of business owners, depending on the nature of the business, my landscape guy, well, yeah, he had tons of equipment. No problem finding write-offs for him. But other businesses don't necessarily have a lot of expenses, but you actually want some business expenses to write off against your income so that you're paying the least amount of tax possible. Don't get me wrong. Everybody should pay tax. I just don't think that they should pay more than necessary. So for bigger businesses, we've got some standalone business plans. And they're more for businesses that have a bunch of employees, maybe some commercial space, and just bigger legal needs. They start at $49 and go up to $169. That $169 legal plan, though, that would be for a company that has like 200 to 300 employees. Let's get serious. If they've got a couple hundred employees, they are spending more than $170 a month just in HR issues, never mind everything else. So huge, huge savings. So even as businesses grow, so can their legal plan.
True. True. I agree with you. Can someone from other countries besides the states and Canada can they purchase this app?
Not at the moment.
No.
As you can probably appreciate, with anything legal, there is a lot of red tape.
That's true.
We've been 50 years in the United States. We are celebrating our 50th anniversary this year, which is pretty exciting.
Wow.
We've been in Canada. Thank you. We've been in Canada for 23 years. But the reality is we've only been across Canada in all of the provinces for about 3 years. And that was all because of red tape. It took a while to find law firms in each state and province in order to service our members, because it is kind of a different business model, and they have to be of a certain caliber. The tenure of our lawyers averages 23 years.
Oh.
So they're not articling students. They are not paralegals. They didn't just graduate yesterday. We've got at least one law firm in every state and most of our provinces. And the reality is, in a lot of cases, half of their firm services public clients and half of them or more services LegalShield clients. Well, when they hire fresh new grads and new lawyers, they get to go work on the public side of things first. It's only once they've proven themselves that they get to work with LegalShield clients. And it's amazing. The lawyers love it, because most lawyers became lawyers because they want to help people. Well, that's all they have to do if they're a LegalShield lawyer. They don't have to worry about billable line items. How many faxes did I send? How many minutes was I on the phone? How many letters? Nope, they don't have to keep track of any of that. They just service our members well. They don't have to go out and get new clients, because we are collectively their largest client. Believe me, we keep them busy. So they don't have to go out and get new clients. So they just get to focus on servicing our members well. We don't own them. They're under contract with us.
Yeah.
So what that means is that they have to follow our service standards.
Oh, yeah.
So you're getting good service, right? They have to return calls within about 48 hours. If they are reviewing a contract, they have to do it within 3 business days. Often they'll do it much quicker, particularly if you tell them it's a rush, but they have to do it within 3 business days. Now, I don't know if you've used lawyers the traditional way before, but often lawyers get back to you based on the size of your retainer.
True.
Is that right? Most of us would argue no. But that's just the reality of the situation. In our case, they look at our client, every one of our members is their best client. So that's just absolutely fabulous.
Oh yeah.
I've learned a number of things recently about the law, particularly here in Canada, such as if you're a business owner and you've got a succession plan, there's something in place for when you're ready to retire, or heaven forbid, if something should happen to you. But you know what? That succession plan means nothing if you don't also have an up-to-date will and power of attorney, for that matter. So that's just one example. And many of us have, watched movies or maybe even had personal experiences where somebody has passed away without a will, and the havoc that causes, whether for the family, the business, or both. It is scary stuff. If you're a business owner, you need an up-to-date will and power of attorney. I mean, everybody should have that. But it's, I won't say more important, but definitely as important if you own a business.
True. No, that is a very good insight and valuable content. Um, and I hope it helps the viewers. Um, I have one last question for you, Cheryl.
Mhm.
What advice would you give to the people who are thinking about starting or purchasing a business?
Several pieces of advice, actually. Um, while you're making the decision, make sure you have all the information, and make sure that you're not making the decision based on emotion, right? Do as much research as you possibly can. And when I say research, yes, you can Google, and yes, you can ask people, but don't go asking your broke brother-in-law if he's never owned a business. Don't go asking somebody who's completely unfamiliar with what you're planning to do, right? Obviously, you want to ask people who either have experience, have done what you're planning to do, or have professional experience to be able to advise you. And that would be financial planners, financial advisors, business coaches, lawyers, absolutely, and accountants, right? If you're planning to start a business, you need all of those people behind you. And probably along the way, if you yourself aren't comfortable with marketing or don't know anything about it, you're probably going to want somebody to help you with marketing, perhaps a website developer and designer, and on and on and on. But starting out of the gate,
Mhm.
definitely you want a good lawyer or legal service. And then before tax time, you want a good accountant. Absolutely. I know firsthand that a good accountant will get you back more money, will prevent you from making mistakes that could cost you a ton of money, a ton of stress, and potentially your business, right? You do not want to make accounting or legal mistakes because they're going to cost you more in the long run. Absolutely. Are lawyers expensive? Yes. But LegalShield is an affordable option. If you can afford a lawyer, if you've got a lawyer in the family, use them proactively. Ask questions. Hey, I'm thinking of starting this business, or I'm thinking of purchasing this franchise. What do I need to know? What do I need to do? How much can you help me with? And if it's a franchise, absolutely you want a lawyer to look over that contract before you sign it. They are not all created equal. I've known many people who've purchased franchises, and in most cases they were thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, even millions of dollars. And I've seen everything from, yep, you get basically a business in a box. They give you a mentor. They give you instructions. They give you guidelines and how-tos and tons of tools and maybe even some software, you name it. Pretty much everything you need to get started on the right foot. And that's amazing. But I've also seen where people have paid millions of dollars and all they get is the right to use a logo and a whole book of rules on what they can't do.
Yeah.
They don't have someone
Right.
they can ask questions of. They don't get mentorship. They don't get any training. And yet they went in assuming, well, if this is costing me millions of dollars, of course I'm going to get all that stuff. Not necessarily. You got to go through that contract with a fine-tooth comb. And most of the time it's written in legalese. You know, they're going to sound like they really, really want to help you. No, they really, really want your money. And they may or may not help you. You got to hire your own lawyer. Yes, it was written by a lawyer, but it wasn't your lawyer. It was their lawyer. Whose interest is that lawyer looking out for? Not you.
No, I agree.
So
And
that's by far my hugest piece of advice for anyone thinking of starting or purchasing a business. Get a good lawyer or legal service, get a good accountant, and then along the way, make sure you're using a good financial advisor. Find a business coach. In fact, you might want a few different ones over time, but all of them are going to allow you to be more successful. You focus on your craft, do what you do best, and source out the rest.
thank you, Cheryl, for that advice. Those are very good advice. And thank you so much for your time and your knowledge and sharing the insight of Legal Shield. I would love to have you on Talking BizTech again. And uh, also, Cheryl, I'm going to turn off your screen, but you can stay there. We'll talk soon. Bye for now.
Thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it. I am passionate. If people have the guts to start a business or purchase a business, I want to see them succeed. So thank you for letting me share today.
Oh, definitely. And how would people get in touch with you? Like if you
Oh,
want me to, yeah, if you want me to, uh, like if you want me to share your email address, I can share it in the description box. So just you can just send me stuff, and then I can just share it in the description box.
absolutely. Did you want me to put it in the chat box?
Yeah, you can do
Okay,
that.
I will give my email and my phone number because if somebody's in, a tight situation, it can be time sensitive. So
Exactly. So yeah,
I am happy to help.
yeah. So thank you again for your time, and I'm just gonna turn off your screen, and then we'll talk soon. Folks, thank you so much for tuning in to Talking BizTech. Do not forget to like, share, and subscribe. And I will get back to you for more podcasts every month. And yeah, and I hope the content was valuable to you. And yeah, anyways, thank you and have a wonderful day. Bye for now.